it was like, this is my role. I kept saying that to myself. I just knew, like, deep down, like, I had the confidence to go in there because I was this person at that moment.
You booked a series regular.
Yes.
Very recently. And being an actor from Atlanta, it's kind of like a huge feat. You kind of set that bar for a lot of the Atlanta actors, and being somebody who has taken classes with you, I just have to say it's so inspiring to see you actually like reach that goal.
Oh, thank you.
You have a very interesting story. You're from Alaska, right?
Yeah.
So tell us how you got into acting, and like tell us how you ended up in Atlanta and that whole story.
I was born originally in Chicago, and I moved to Ketchikan, Alaska, a really small island, when I was, I think, 4. My mom was getting divorced, and she was like, I need the strength. And she wanted to do a divorce tour, and she was going to go around the U.S. and visit all of her friends that had previously been divorced to like get the ultimate strength to get divorced. The last stop was Ketchikan, where my aunt lived, and my mom was getting the strength from her. And she decided to go and look at houses just for fun. And my aunt was like, you know what? You're finishing school. She was trying to get her doctorate at this time. She's like, you have a year left in school. Why don't you come and finish your dissertation? That's what it's called. Yeah, dissertation in Ketchikan. So it's like the last assignment before you actually get your doctorate. She's like, you know what? That sounds good. So we went back to Chicago, packed all of our stuff. My older brother actually picked out our house we were going to live in on the internet because he didn't like change. That's another story, but he hates change. And I was like, okay, just go pick out which house you like. So then he picked it out, and we moved to Ketchikan, Alaska. The real estate agent thought my mom was crazy. He was like, oh, you want to buy a house online that you've never seen? She's like, yes, we want this house. So when we moved there, we got there to the house. We showed up, and he was standing there, the real estate agent, with donuts and all this stuff for us. My mom fell in love with him, and we ended up staying. They got married. He moved into that same house a year later.
No way.
So he and my mom are still married. I think it's been 19 years now, and they're still crazy about each other. But how did I get into acting? So it started there. I was from a really small town, and I was like, I want to be an actress because my uncle, his name's Peter Jacobson. He's been on House and a lot of other shows. And I always kind of looked up to him, and I was like, I really want to do that. It looks fun. And my brother also, when I was like 6, we went to go see the play Annie, and he was in it. And my mom said I stood up in the audience, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to be in that play. And she's like, you have to wait a year so I can enroll you in theater camp. So then every summer I would be in the theater camp, and I just started doing tons of theater. Any opportunity that was in that small town, like I took that opportunity. You know, I just did what I could. And then my Uncle Peter came into the picture, and I just would like call him and be like, what do I need to do? I want to be an actress. I was like 7. I was like, what should I be doing? And he was like, you're going to want to get some headshots. You know, you're going to want to get some headshots.
That's one.
And so I found a photographer, and I saved up my allowance and paid her to come take headshots for me.
Wow.
Also, then I brought those photos to recess and was signing autographs and stuff.
Oh my God.
I'm going to be in movies. And then when I turned like 10, 11, I was on Google trying to find casting directors and sending them my material. Like my crappy headshots and stuff. I graduated high school when I was 16 because I wanted to pursue acting. It was just always, that was my passion. That was my purpose, you know, and I just had no doubt about that. And coming from a small town with people that were constantly doing like hardcore drugs around me, I had no friends. My mom was also a therapist, and she was like the therapist to everyone in the town. So I would go to school, and kids would be like, oh, I love your mom. And I'd be like, how do you know my mom? I'd be like, oh, yeah, she was their therapist. So it's like I had no friends. I could never do anything bad because my mom knew who all the bad kids were. So it's just like I always had acting, you know?
Yeah.
And so when I turned, I think 16 or 17, my mom and I moved to Florida. My dad was a fisherman at this time, so he stayed behind and met us later. But I moved to Florida with my mom. I got an agent in Clearwater, Florida, I think.
Uh-huh.
My first like agent. And when I turned 18, I packed up all my stuff and left to Atlanta. I was like, I want to be an actress. It's LA or Atlanta. And my gut was just like, Atlanta, you need to build your credits. And I had done my research and I was like, that's the place.
Please, if you can, share the story of how you got Gidget.
It's such an amazing story. And I know that like people, you know, I'm not going to say who, but people have been like, you're not supposed to really discuss all that, or maybe you shouldn't, it could hurt you. But you know what? I don't give a fuck. Like, this story is so amazing. And it's like my first kind of experience with manifestation. So I booked a show called P Valley. It's going to be out in July now. I was living in Atlanta at the time. I got the audition, my first audition for the role in, I think, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading it and I was like, there's something about this. I don't know what it is. And it was so difficult for me. The first audition, I was like, it's so out of my comfort zone. This girl she's a stripper. She's very quirky. I'm quirky too, but she's like Southern. So I had to do an accent. It was just kind of, I don't know, but there was just something. You ever do something or have something that comes up and you're like, or meet somebody and you're like, there's something about that person. I know that there's going to be something down the line. We're going to meet again or something's going to connect. So I did the audition, sent it in. And I remember after I did it, it was like, yes, I can do this. Like, oh my gosh, that was weird. I've never played a character like that before. And I think it was 3 scenes, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, must have someone that, like, your reader must be Southern. You know, you must be comfortable with nudity. That was a big thing, is like, if you are submitting to this audition, you must be comfortable. I was contemplating moving to LA at the time. I had been praying for a sign. I was like, am I supposed to go? Because my gut is like, leave, you need to go to LA. But everyone in Atlanta was like, stay. Why would you leave? Why would you leave? I remember having a conversation with a casting director and I told her my situation just all honestly. And she's like, you need to go to LA. I think you'd do well. I think now is the time. And I was like, okay. But I still was kind of hesitant. I went to a Golden Globes party and I came home and my house had been broken into. And all my valuables were stolen. My house was completely trashed. I couldn't even go in the house. I was so traumatized. And I just was like, that's a sign. I mean, that's a horrible sign, but that was my sign. I took it as a sign that it's my time to go. Mm. And also I was in acting classes at the time, and Sarah Mornell was my teacher, and I was trying to finish up her classes, and I told her I wanted to go to LA. She says, you know what, book 2 SAG roles, and then I think you'll be ready to go to LA. So I moved into another house that was temporary. Then I started making plans to move to LA. I booked 2 SAG roles within 2 months. Everything just was like, go, like pushing me then to go. I didn't have anything in Atlanta. You know, there was always an excuse, like, what about all my furniture? What about my roommate? And all of that, when it was taken away, it was very clear. And at that same time, I remember taping with a friend, and she was like, wouldn't it be crazy if you went to LA and then you booked a series regular role and came back to Atlanta? It was like the foreshadowing of my life. It was really weird.
Wow.
And so then I moved to LA. My mom helped me move, and my dad. I moved to LA. I got here within the first week. I was like, or in the first day, I guess the first 24 hours, it was just a horrible experience. I like find a roommate. I had been talking to this girl. She called me and was like, you know what? I looked through your Instagram and your YouTube videos and you just wouldn't fit in here. I'm a reality star. And like, if you lived here, you couldn't come out of your bedroom till 1 p.m. every day because we shoot and we're sleeping. She was like bullying me. It scared me. I didn't know anyone in LA. And so I was like, okay, can I do this? Are people really that awful? What is going on?
Yeah.
My mom was like laughing at my face. She's like, you look like you're terrified right now. I'm like, I am. It's terrifying to move by yourself across the country. Mm-hmm. But the scariest part was when my parents were like, okay, well, good luck. And they flew back to Florida, and I was there by myself. I was like, holy shit, I can do this though,
Yeah.
But I got a roommate, Alicia Braden. She's my first roommate here. She's an amazing actress. I was really lucky to find her, but everyone in Atlanta was like, you're not going to find a place in LA with 2 dogs. I have 2 dogs. And, everyone was telling me, why would you move there? You can't do this. Well, I did all the things that people were telling me I couldn't do. Like, I got representation in a week. Everyone's like, there's no way. That's the thing you hear in Atlanta. Like, you will never get representation in LA. It's so hard. I submitted to this and this and this. I just never believed that. I had 3 meetings with 3 different managers, all wanted to sign me. I got a commercial agent. Everyone I met was awesome and people I wanted to work with, like it wasn't a bad experience. And people mostly speak on their fears and their experiences and their journeys. Well, your journey is your own journey. So now I'm living in LA and I get another audition for the role of Gidget in P Valley from a different casting director from my Southeast agents. And I'm like, that's weird. I've already done this audition. So I call them. They're like, just do it again. Just make it awesome. You can send them your old takes if you want, actually. And I was like, no, I'm going to take this opportunity. I know these scenes and do it again and make different choices. So I did it again. A day later, I got a message that was like, can you dance? They want to see a clip of you dancing. Well, it just so happens that I had been taking pole fitness classes on and off just throughout the years randomly. And so I was like, okay, I found a pole studio, went and filmed myself just doing a couple twirls, on the pole.
Yeah.
And then I sent it in. And then about 3 weeks later, I got a call back in Atlanta and I paid for my ticket back to Atlanta to attend the callback. My friend Brandy had a callback for the other role, Mercedes. I went to her house and we started practicing our dance routines and she was helping me with mine because we had to perform a routine in the audition. We were in bikinis in her apartment complex gym with men working out behind us on treadmills doing the craziest dance. Like I was bending over, like
I can imagine.
We looked at the guy and he was like sweating and we're like, we're going to be on Starz. Like, just don't worry about it. That's what we kept saying. And the guy at the end, I remember he got off the treadmill and he was like, that was the best workout I've ever had.
Oh my God.
And so I flew back to Atlanta. I went into the callback, but he was like, oh, I remember before I went to the callback, I coached with Sarah. I went and I was like, can you just look and just make sure I made the right choices? And she's like, what do you want me to coach you on? This is like perfect. And the way she was looking at me, she's like, I think you're going to book this role. You don't need to do anything different. And I just had so much confidence in this role, right? Like also before, so I keep jumping around, but right before I had attended this callback, I was like, I've never been to a strip club and that's the environment that these characters live in. That's their world. I went to a strip club on Hollywood Boulevard at like 3 p.m. I was the only one there and I just watched and it was like such an emotional roller coaster. These women, it's like, wow. Where's your parents? Why are you doing this? I'm like, yes, girl, you go, girl. Like it was just such an emotional experience. So I was really in character.
Were they dancing? Were they dancing on you? Were you paying?
Oh, yeah. They were coming up to me. I was so uncomfortable at certain times. They were like, let me give you a lap dance. And like, I really like you. And I was like, I told them about the audition and they were like, oh, really? What do you want to know? I'll tell you. They told me what it was like, all this stuff. I got the whole inside scoop, the locker room scoop, everything. I want to say though, when I was going to this callback, for me, nerves has always been a huge thing and anxiety that I've struggled with. And I know a lot of people can relate to that. Well, for this callback, I can't explain it, but I wasn't really nervous. It was like, this is my role. I kept saying that to myself. I just knew deep down, I had the confidence to go in there because I was this person at that moment.
Do you feel very close to Gidget?
I've never experienced losing myself so deeply in a character before. This role in particular, for some reason, she's so far from who I actually am at times that like it's easier. I have to just let everything completely go. And when you get to that point, it's like you don't give a fuck anymore. You don't like you actually are that person. I don't know how to does that make sense? I don't know. Yeah. But I had never felt that before about a character. It's like so close, like holy shit, I can do this. I can actually be in her mind and like think her thoughts. And so I went into the callback. I had huge shades on. I had a leather jacket. I had a huge t-shirt on, my Doc Martens, and I walked in with my accent and had my headphones in, and they're like, hi. And I'm like, hi, how are you? And just took them off, put my headphones down. I was totally her in the room. They're like, how are you? And I don't know why this came out of my mouth. This is so stupid. I was like, I mean, I'm on my period, but I'm fine. I said that, and their face is like, oh, okay, well, are you ready? But I didn't care because it was so true, and it was like, I have to do a dance for you guys, and I'm on my fucking period, and Gidget's kind of sassy, you know?
Yeah.
And so I did my callback, and at the end, the creator was there. She was like, oh, your accent is perfect. And I was like, oh, thanks, you know, and just talked to her. I stayed in character the whole time. Okay, I left, flew back to LA. This was all on my own dime. I got a message like 3 days later. The creator and the producer wants to Skype with you and just talk to you. And so I was myself. I talked to them for like an hour, just about everything about my process. And when I got off that call, it was like, holy shit, I think I booked this role. Like, I think this is my role. You know, I called my agents and they were like, wow, that's crazy. Let's see what happens. And so about 2 weeks went by, and the feeling of not knowing was like one of the worst feelings I've ever had. I found out my friend Brandy had gotten the role. She told me because we were really close. And I was like, oh, I haven't heard anything. And then she's like, there was another girl at the meeting signing contracts. And the pain, man, the pain of finding out that somebody else had gotten the role to shoot the pilot was like the worst feeling. Like someone stabbed me. It was like, I don't understand. And the thing was, is like inside, like, I don't know what it was, but like, I didn't understand because how could you feel so close to a role, like something is so, like it's yours, yet not get it? It didn't make sense to me. So I was in such a deep depression. Like it was so hard for me. And my boyfriend, he was like, have you ever manifested? This is when it started. And I was like, no, I mean, kind of. I thought I had, but I hadn't. And he's like, you should just, you know, start trying to tell yourself you're a series regular. Like you are this and that, and, you know, manifest who you want to be. And I was like, okay. And that next day I was like, I'm done feeling sorry for myself, you know. I went to the gym. And I remember all these moments like really well for some reason. I was on the treadmill and I was like, in my mind, I am a series regular, but I believed it like 100%. Like it may not happen right now, but it might happen next week. It may not happen next week, but it might happen a year from now, but I'm not going to give up, you know? And with P-Valley in my mind, I was like, they're going to write me in. They're going to write me in. I can see myself on that show. I can see it so clearly. And I kept going. I kept saying, you're a series regular. I got home from the gym. I was in the shower. I'm a series regular. I'm a series regular. I get out of the shower. I look at my phone, and there's a text from the producer. And he says, hey, we're going to call you back in. So just be prepared. I was like, what the fuck? Did I just manifest that? It was so, yes. It was so crazy. I was like, okay. Didn't hear anything for a week until my manager was like, hey, they want to give you a callback. I think I did 2 callbacks, and then I flew to Atlanta on my own dime again and did another callback. Yeah. And
what was that process like when they were like, okay, yeah, we want you in for a callback? Were you like, okay, I have to buy a ticket right now? And did you just get on and book the ticket? Like, did you second guess it? Were you like, is this worth it?
Yeah, I was pretty low on money, but I remember talking to my manager. I was like, they won't see me in LA because they knew I had the ability to go back and forth, which I told my reps I will pay to go back to Atlanta. That was kind of one of the deals we had when I moved, is they'd still represent me if I could fly back for callbacks. And so I talked to all of them, and my manager was like, you need to just keep getting in their face. Like, just do what they're asking. Just show up, show up, show up. It's like, okay. Well, I got to Atlanta, did the call, got on a plane back to LA. I didn't hear anything for a while. I remember one of my auditions was on Thanksgiving. I remember that and being like, they want this tape right now. Then I also had to tape, and I was just like, I was so in my head at that time. I was like, this is my role, but like I have to do well, you know. They gave me notes, and my manager was like, you know, this tape, because I went to a taping studio to tape it, and she was like, this tape is awful, like you need to redo it, there's glitter on your face. The taping studio was just horrible, the sound was horrible. I'd paid them like $50 to tape it. I had to go redo it after that.
Oh my God.
In between that, I went to a strip club, and I went to a strip club. I walked in, and the security guard was like, can I help you? And I was like, yeah, I want to see some girls. And then this guy came out who owned the club, and he's like, you want to work here? And I was like, no, I want to see some girls. Is there a fucking problem? And that's like totally Gidget. And he was like, no, we're just closed right now. And that was enough for me to get into character. And I went back, retaped the audition, felt great about it, sent it in. And I didn't hear anything for weeks. And at the time, I was nannying during the day, and I was at their piano appointment. I was sitting in the waiting room, and my manager called me, and I was like, here, this is the call. And I answer, and she's like, hey, they decided to go with someone else. You didn't get the role. And I was like, I will call you later. I was about to like cry. Like when something tragic happens and your tears are just coming down, that's the feeling I had. Because it didn't make sense.
So were you put on hold, and that was why you were able to know that they went in the other direction? Like, a lot of times it's like you could get so close and just not even know it.
Right. No, they did say, they sent me an email that I was pinned for the role. You know, we work so hard as actors, and we don't get paid for those auditions. We don't get paid. Like, it's just an awful feeling. Mm-hmm. And I, again, was in such a dark space, like eating crappy. Like I didn't want to act anymore. And I've never felt, that was the only time in my whole life I've ever felt like I don't want to act anymore. I don't want to see a script. I don't want to see any of that. I don't want to email. Like, I don't want any of that because it hurts so bad. And it was just like, I knew in my mind I would never give up. Like, I knew that. But that feeling was like, I want to so bad. And I got a call back for a different project, and in Atlanta. I was like, fuck, like I have to do it.
Were you like, I don't have the money to go back to Atlanta again?
Of course. But I had to. Like, I don't know what it is, but it was just in my mind is like, I will never quit. I've made that promise to myself, and I will do what I have to do. And I figured out the money between my parents, I think, and I flew out to Atlanta, and I took a red eye. They gave me 8 new pages of dialogue to memorize that night. I was extremely exhausted. I got to the callback, and I completely fucked up my callback. Like, I've never fucked up a callback so bad. When I got back to LA, I remember I also, in the beginning, when I started Manifest, put reminders to pop up on my phone. So they would say, like, you are a series regular, or I am a series regular. It would say, I am Gidget is one of them. It would say, I am on Starz. And I just never turned them off. And when I got home back from LA, it was like 10 o'clock at night, and I got a call from the producer, one of them, and he was like, do you have availability for the next few months? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, there's a role in development, and I think you'd be perfect, and we'll just talk soon. That was it. I was like, okay.
You're like, you're not going to tell me anything? You're not going to... Like...
I assumed that it was a role they had written in for me, and it was just like a quick role.
Yeah.
For some reason, my mind was just like, it's probably a quick turnaround or whatever. They're going to call me in like a month. And the next day, I was sitting in a commercial audition waiting room, and my phone started blowing up. My reps were calling me like, Skyler, you've been offered the role of Gidget. And I was like, what? You know, I was like really quiet in like the waiting rooms too, like all the
Yes.
actors like sitting there. I'm like, oh my God, you know? And I'm like, I'm in an audition. I'll call you right after. Best audition of my life. Didn't book it, but just walked in like not caring, you know, at all.
Wow.
And I walked out and I got the contract, and I was on a plane that night to Atlanta. So it happened. I left in like 4 hours. I had to completely pack up my house. My boyfriend was like, just go. I got the dogs. Like, just go. And I got on a plane. I left. And the next day I was on set. Like, it happened just like that.
I love this. I seriously, because it's just so amazing, because I think we all think we know how it's going to happen, or we worry about how it's going to happen. We'll either think like it's for sure going to happen this way, or we don't know how it's going to happen, so we stress out about it. But like, look at how it happened. It was so weird and interesting and a ride, and you just kind of went with it, and like, and the rejection, and like, those were all signs you were on the right path, you know? And it's so easy to think that this has something to do with your worth, or that you're not good enough and you almost gave up.
Yeah, and you hear about actresses or actors like all the time being like, oh, my big break happened right before I gave up. Like, I was going to get on a plane and go home, and then I booked it. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know why it takes that long, but what the heck? But also I want to say, like, our words are so powerful. We don't realize how powerful what we say is. Because there was times I remember saying, like, this is my role. I don't understand. This is my role. The other thing I want to say is pay attention to signs, because I'm huge with numbers. I saw the number 18 everywhere. I mean, to the point where it was like, why am I seeing this all the time? It was overwhelming. Well, I researched it, and it meant that something my angels were telling me, something big is about to happen. Your life is about to change. I did a tarot card reading at one point, and they were like, something big is about to happen. Like, the universe was telling me the whole time. I just had to be patient. But when it's your role, it's your role. And like, I don't know if everyone has that feeling about theirs, but like, what is meant for you is meant for you, and it will find you. Like, it will. So just like, people need to relax, you know? It might not happen for you right now. It might not happen like 2 years from now, which sucks to think about. Mm-hmm. But when it does happen, it'll be completely worth it. Yeah. Like, that wait and what you went through and what you, like, all the plane tickets I had to pay for. Like, it'll all make sense and be worth it. And you'll be like, this is what I've worked for.
That is so inspiring, Skyler. And every time you stomp your foot and say, oh, it didn't happen for me. Why is it not happening for me? I don't see any evidence of it not happening for me. It's just like you said, your words are so powerful. So you just like, you almost manifest that. Because I think we're always manifesting it. You know, you said you hadn't started manifesting until this role, but the truth is you started manifesting when you were a 7-year-old little girl messaging casting directors.